First, we can't work Instagram Live. Now we can't work Zoom. We got to figure something out.
Instagram Live is a little difficult sometimes, okay? It don't like to cooperate. All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to BakedHR. My name is Jazmine Wilkes, and I am here with my BakedHR co-host, Kristina Minyard. Hey, Kristina.
Hey, Jazmine.
So
How are you?
I'm okay. Are you prepared to teach the people how to do the Meg Tha Stallion body dance?
Girl, you did not just call me out. You did not just call me out.
You said you've been practicing?
Listen, I think Justin Minyard is so tired of that song because I'll be like, Alexa, and get the hook up. And I'll be trying to do it through the house. It don't look good yet. I'm gonna get there, but I'm not ready. I'll let y'all know when I'm ready to teach you. Cause I know if I break it down into like a little 4 count, I'm gonna get it. But if I watch it, my knees don't want to do what her knees do. I can't believe you called me out like that.
Well, got to spice it up a little bit, even though we're coming to everyone for another quick venting session. I like these. These are pretty. They're usually short. You know, we kind of get in and get out, tell you how we feel.
Hopefully informative as well, and not just a place for us to gripe.
Yes,
we're trying to make them informative.
I really think tonight's quick venting session will be helpful for a lot of people. You know.
Okay, well, let's get into it. Jazmine, can I ask you the question first?
Sure, go ahead.
So, let's talk about maybe one of your biggest pain points from an HR perspective and managers, like not your executives, but managers.
One of my biggest pain points is when we throw people into the management role and they're not prepared for it. So just because someone has possibly been at your organization for years on end, doing a great job in their role, doesn't mean that they can be a manager, and it also doesn't mean that they want to be a manager. I think that's one of our another one of our big issues is that we see someone doing good and we put them into what we feel like would be great, and which is good. You should motivate your people to continue climbing if that is what they want to do. Some people are okay with coming in and doing their work, doing what they love, doing what they know will, you know, let them leave at a certain time every day. And they don't aspire to be in a higher position, which is fine. But I think we do so much harm, even though HR can be there trying to, you know, make sure that the manager has what they need. I do.
I'll come back to that.
But it does do harm to that person that you've placed in that role and your organization and the employees that they possibly have to manage.
So, you know what I think is funny is that, you know, like from a recruiting perspective, and you're talking about like retention strategies, and obviously you want to consider what your employees want to do as part of your retention strategy, right? Because if you, like you said, you put somebody in a role that maybe they don't want, then that's probably not going to increase your chances of retaining them. Mm-hmm. When we talk about stuff like that, so often from like the leadership, the high up leadership, I hear, well, this person wants to climb the ladder. They probably want to climb the ladder. It's 2020 and climb the ladder can look different to different individuals. And I don't think that it always means like, oh, my version of climbing the ladder is having a team of 10 people who report to me. Somebody's version of climbing the ladder might be becoming an expert in this like one area that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, the other side of that is when people want to leave a job because they were put in a management role, and either they didn't want the management role in the first place, or they did the management thing and they're like, this is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Then when they're interviewing with new organizations for a non-management role, so often those organizations are like, oh,
Yep.
I don't think they're going to want to work for someone else because they're used to being the manager. When 9 times out of 10, people want to actively get out of a management role. Like they're like, I hated the people management part of my job. I want to go back to a role where I'm not the manager. But we think in our minds when we're like recruiting and screening and interviewing, oh, well, they're going to have a hard time taking direction because they're used to being the ones giving the direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of this can kind of probably be traced back to, promoting someone who wasn't ready to be a manager, and not only doing that, but then not preparing them to be a good manager, not training them to be a good manager.
Yep.
So I promised you I would tell this story, and I didn't tell you what the story is. But my first management job happened when I was in staffing. So, technically I was office manager or whatever when they, back in 2008, when they put me over their Huntsville location.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just me who worked there. So I didn't have any like direct reports or anything. And then the Decatur office kind of loaned me somebody to work part-time, but they still didn't report directly to me. And we didn't really know what we were doing. None of us knew what we were doing back then. But I remember the owner's son was like training to take over the company, and he spent a lot of time here in the state with us, kind of learning the ins and outs of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a task, like a sales meeting or something he didn't want to get ready for. And he literally looked at me and said, if you will get all this stuff together for this sales meeting, I will send in a status change to corporate for you to be the manager, like literally manage these people who are coming to work here. And I was like, okay. And I did it. And he literally stood there, filled out a status change form, faxed it to corporate office. Faxed.
Oh,
F-A-X.
Faxing.
A fax machine. Yes, ma'am. And then suddenly I was a manager and I had direct reports. I was really, really good at the recruiting part of my job. I was really, really good at the sales part. I was really, really good at taking care of customers, not really, really good at managing other people and motivating them and figuring out like how to help them be better in their roles. Like I was not prepared for any of that. So just because I did the tasks of the job well, I was able, and I was in the right place at the right time, I guess. I was promoted into a management position that I didn't deserve, and then had no training to back it up. So I had to learn basically everything the hard way, and had a lot of people I had to apologize to along the way. It was awful, and that happens all the time.
I was gonna say that's you can kind of say typical of what happens to most organizations. I would say back in my great old Chuck E. Cheese days.
Chuck E. Cheese, I love a Chuck E. Cheese story.
Because that's where I was a manager for the first time ever. I will say that as far as dealing with being a manager of a store, they did have great training. Like I had to go to, so I was in Mobile. I had to go to a store in Atlanta and stay there for a week, where they taught me the ins and outs of being a manager of a store that was kind of similar to the one that I would be managing in Mobile. And that taught me so much about, being a man. Like it took me through each step, which I appreciated. And I didn't realize how it doesn't all the time. It's it doesn't really happen in a lot of organizations. So when I came and, you know, moved into HR and saw how we were treating managers and just moving managers into moving employees into a management position and being like, well, you know, just tell Jerry to do it now since you're his manager, like, you know, that's what you need to do. I was like, oh, what are we doing? We're not preparing these people. They don't know how to manage. You think that just because someone, like I said, just because someone knows how to do a task doesn't mean they know how to be a manager. And so that's one of my biggest pain points with HR and leadership.
So I'm going to kind of tack on like the other side of that for my biggest pain point, and maybe not pain point isn't the right phrase, but I think something that I take for granted and I have to be intentional about is that when we have these managers, whether they earned their promotion or they were just in the right or wrong place at the right or wrong time. And granted too, I have a lot to say about, I will save the soapbox for another day, but I have a lot to say about rewarding tenure versus accomplishments. To your point earlier about just putting someone in that role who's been here a long time. So I think that there's a better way to have that conversation, but we can save that for another video. But I think that I take for granted that these managers understand my role as the HR person and that I'm here to help you be a better manager, and I'm here to give you the resources that you need to be able to manage these people. Whether it's how to conduct better interviews when we're hiring for your team versus, how to, check in with your employees without coming across as a micromanager. If I am giving you resources, or if I'm sending you an email, or I'm calling you up and I'm having this conversation, I take for granted that you're like, oh, this is what my HR person's supposed to do. I need to listen up. I need to take notes. I need to go implement whatever she's telling me. And sometimes they just think, oh, well, Kristina's just giving me her advice. Kristina's just giving me her life lessons. No, your HR person is helping you get the resources you need to be a better manager. So I have to take a step back and be like, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you knew what HR was here for. Let me explain it. I'm not sending you this stuff for funsies. I'm not like, oh, I can't wait to help you be a better manager just for the fun of it. Like, I'm like, okay, here's where I see a gap, or here is where I have talked with your boss who signs your timesheet, who has seen a gap. And this is the training we've decided that you needed to fill that gap. So here's what we're going to do. Now, if you would rather this training come from your boss, then fine, I can make that happen. But don't assume that your HR people are just giving you advice that you can just, choose to follow or not follow. Like, they're here to help you and give you good resources. And now normally, like, when I take a step back and say, okay, wait, let me take this back a couple steps and acknowledge that, hey, we're building a plan here. This is going to help you be a better manager. This is what we need from you as an organization. What do you feel like you're lacking for your own, like, personal goal of being a good manager? Then everyone gets on board. But if I skip that step, I'm just assuming that people know what HR, and let's be honest, there's a lot of people in our organizations that don't even know what HR's purpose is besides police the Christmas party, right?
True.
It's true. That could be a whole nother video.
Right. Because I will say,
but yeah.
So I've had an employee who, we hired a new person to come on and join his team, and he didn't meet the person before we hired them because he was moving into that position. And so when I was going to introduce the new hire to their supervisor, the supervisor made the comment of, well, what do they look like? How old are they? Like, are they an old person? Like, can they do the job? And I had to stop and be like, sometimes you're shocked that someone would say that. And then you're like, okay, well, this person has never been in a management role. Maybe they just was, things that they should have thought in their head, even though they shouldn't have thought those things. And so you have to explain, go back to the basics of HR, of why we're not going to say these things, why we're not going to ask these questions. So yeah, we do have to kind of remember that everyone doesn't know our role, or doesn't understand what HR.
And I find that it helps to share the big picture, like where we fit into the big picture whenever we give them like if you're saying, okay, here's why we don't ask these questions, like that you explain the source of why we don't ask these questions and why that could be damaging and why that's not a good idea and it's not a good practice. So it's not just, oh, well, the HR lady said no, so I'm not going to tell the HR lady what we do because she's always going to say no. Like, you have to give them the education that backs up what our perspective is and why our stance is what it is. And also that will help them be better managers when you're not in the room.
Yes. That's what y'all should be worried about. What's your managers looking like when you're not in the room?
Some days that's a scary thought, and some days I'm like, they're totally fine. They got this. Well, okay, so we said we would keep it short, so I'm going to wrap us up on that point.
Okay.
But I think so. You've got a problem with us putting people in a position when they're not ready for it, and I've got a problem with them not ready to receive the training we want to give them.
Yep.
Together, we could solve any organization's problems, right, Jazmine?
That's what we're here for. That's the whole reason of Baked HR. We're here to solve your issues, okay? And we know y'all have them.
And tell you embarrassing stories about how we got our first management job. So now everyone knows that our own career is just a complete freaking fraud. I almost said the actual F word.
Yeah.
Well, it's 2020, so
who knows at this point. So let us know what you think about our pain points, and what are some of yours. So what do you want to see us talk about for our next venting session, or on IG? So email us at bakedhr@gmail.com. If you have a topic, if you want to join us on Baked HR, we do have another guest video coming out really soon. So we're super excited about that one. You can follow us on Instagram at BakedHR, where we are starting to, we've gotten the hang of it, we think, of IG Live.
Next Sunday we'll tell for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? What's today?
Today's Monday. So yeah. Give us a follow, come and see all of the funny things we like to talk about on Baked HR, and make sure you subscribe to the Baked HR YouTube channel, where all of our videos are uploaded so you can see us. Thank you for joining us tonight on this quick venting session about Baked HR and managers. We'll see you next time.
Bye.